Shalom Aleichem, Rabbi Kovacs here, and Mishnah Yomi is holding in chapter 7 of Sanhedrin, Mishnah 4 and 5. Elu hen haniskolin. These are people who get a Skilah, a stoning, as their execution, though we saw back in chapter 6 that the actual stoning really is step 2 and step 3 of the process. But who are they? Haba olaem, a man who lives intimately with his own mother, al eshet av, or with the wife of his father, even if, of course, she's not his actual mother, balakala, or his daughter-in-law, balazachor, or a man living with a man, al behema, or with an animal, va'isha, or a woman, hamavia et a behema, who is intimate with an animal. The hamegodef, and the blasphemer. We'll see in the next Mishnah, this is someone who uses a curse with one of the official names of Hashem in the curse. Va'ovid avodah zarah, somebody who worships a strange worship, that's idolatry, paganism. Vanoten mizaru l'molech, somebody who gives some of his children over to the molech, that's some sort of fire god. We'll see more about that in Mishnah Zion coming up tomorrow. A bal ov yidoni, someone who uses ov and yidoni, these are forms of necromancy. Hamacholol et Shabbat, somebody who purposefully breaks the rules of Shabbat. V'kolol aviv imo, a man who curses his father or mother. V'bal nara mursa, a man who lives intimately with a nara, a young woman who's also had erusin. She had the first stage of Jewish marriage. She hasn't had chuppah and moved in with her husband yet, but she is really a married woman. The hamesit, somebody who tempts someone else to do idolatry. Hamediach, a mediach is somebody who's trying to convince a city to become iranidacha, to become a wayward city that's doing avodah zarah. Hamechoshef, somebody doing magic. Uben sor or more, and a son who is rebellious and wayward. Actually, chapter 8 is going to describe how he works. And now the Mishnah turns to give us a bit more detail about these averot, these crimes. Haba al ha'em, someone who lives with his own mother, hayav aleha, he is liable for that sin, mishum em, for his mother, mishum eshet av, and also he's liable if she's married to his father for that avera of the wife of his father. So he's liable twice. Now, obviously, we can't kill him twice. This means if he did the avera bishogig, not on purpose, he did not know this woman was his mother, he's liable twice to bring 2 karban chataot. He has to bring 2 offerings to atone for this sin. Even though it was one act, there were 2 different violations. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees, says, Eino chayev ele mishum em bilvad. He says, really, he's only liable for the mother, not liable for both things at once. And then Gemara, they explain, he bases this on the psukim about the isser, the forbidden relationship with the mother. Habal eshet av, somebody who lives with the wife of his father, chayev aleha, so he's liable for that, mishum eshet av, because it's the wife of his father, mishum eshet ish. And if they're married, he's also liable for the isser of Eshet Ish, any married woman, not just someone married to a relative. Bein b'chayi aviv, whether his father is still alive, bein la'achar mitat aviv, even after his father passes away, he's still forbidden to be intimate with a woman who was married to his father. Bein min erusin, bein min nisuin, whether this marriage was merely erusin, as we mentioned, the nara marasa, the first stage of marriage, or nisuin, after chuppah, when they are really living together. Now the Mishnah brings a similar situation by Haba'al Kalato, a man who lives with his daughter-in-law, Chayav Aleha, he's liable Mishum Kalato, because that's his daughter-in-law, Mishum Eshedish, and also if she's married, because of a married woman. Bein B'chayi Beno, Bein La'achar Mitat Beno. And the liability for the Kala is whether his son is alive or after the son is departed. Bein Min Erusin, Bein Min Nisuin. And whether the son married this woman through the first stage of marriage or through the second stage as well through Nisuin. Now the Mishnah analyzes the next part of the first clause of the Mishnah. So the Mishnah is acting a little bit like Gemara here. Habal zachar, a man lives with a man, ala behema, with an animal, isha mavia at a behema, or a woman with a behema. And now the Mishnah explains, kind of like the Gemara would ask, im adam chata, if a human being sinned, behema machatat. What did the poor animal do? What did the animal do that we have to actually put the animal to death? After the animal gets a trial, it can be put to death for this sin. And this is actually the Torah requirement over in Vayikra chapter 20, that not just the person involved, but the animals involved must be put to death, which is a little surprising because animals do not have the dot, do not have the requisite intellectual development to understand what they're doing, so why are they liable? So the Mishnah explains, because a ruination came to a person through the hands of this animal, through the means of this animal being involved in the Aveira. Lefichach Amar Katov, therefore the Torah tells us, Tisakel, this animal should be stoned, so it will not be around to be a temptation or an issue for other people. Davar Acher, another reason, Shlotehei Habehema Overit Pushuk, so this animal won't be walking by the street in the market. V'yomru, people will see it and they'll say, Zohi Shenisko Ploni Ol Yada, this animal was the reason that so-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so got a Skilah. So we're really trying to protect the reputation of the human being who was involved in such a sin. So we remove, the other party, the evidence of the sin as well. On to Mishnah, Hey HaMegodef, the blasphemer. Eino Chayev, he's not liable Skilah ad sheyafarish et Hashem, unless he uses an explicit name of God. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karach, Rabbi Yeshua ben Karach explains, Bekol yom donin et ha'edim, all day the judges are talking to the edim bekinui, using a nickname. They don't use the actual name that the blasphemer spoke, they use a nickname. Yake Yossi et Yossi. For example, they use the word Yossi. Yossi is a name, short for Yosef, but it also starts with the Yud and the Vav, like a name of Hashem does, and it has 4 letters, like one of the official names of Hashem. It's the original 4-letter word. So the idea being that during the trial, the judges and the Edim use Yossi, or a kinui, a nickname. They don't use the actual official name of God that the sinner, the blasphemer, used. But Nigmar Adin, at the conclusion of the case, lo horgim bekinui, they can't execute the blasphemer using just testimony about the nickname. Elamotziim kol adam lachutz, they bring everyone who's unnecessary out of the courtroom. V'sholin to godol, they ask the eldest of the witnesses, shebehen of the witnesses, omrim lo, they tell him, emor ma shamata befeirush, tell us exactly what you heard, the explicit name. V'hu omer, and he says, the blasphemer said exactly these words, and he repeats those exact words using the official name. But dayanim omdim, and the judges stand up, al regleim, on their legs, v'korin et malchin, and they tear, v'lo malchin, and they can't stitch up this tear. So they tear their shirt as a sign of mourning, as a sign of outrage that such a horrible thing was done, and it's a tear that they can never stitch up. Now, the witness doesn't have to tear, because witnesses to such a blasphemy would also have torn their cloak or their shirt at the time they originally heard the original sin. Hasheni Omer, the second witness, says, Afani kamahu, I heard exactly like him. Shlishi Omer, if there's a third witness, he says, Afani kamahu, I heard exactly like him. We don't have the second and third witnesses repeat the exact name, as long as they agree to the testimony that it was that explicit name of God, then we can execute the blasphemer on the basis of this testimony. Yashar kochachem tiskulu mitzvot.